everyone is here, so I'm going to go ahead and call to order the Will County Legislative Policy Committee meeting for February 14th. If we can please have roll call.
Rinaldo.
Here.
Harris. Politis.
Here.
Markham.
Here.
Moran.
Here.
Ogalla. Here. Parker. Here. Daly Hart. Ferry. Here. Art.
Here.
We also have Eustace and Brooks.
Great. Rhonda, will you lead us?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Real quick, I'm just going to do the approval of minutes for January 10th. All in favor? Motion carries. Okay, we're going to move right on to, with you, Brett.
Okay. Well, so I figured I'd start with a quick Washington update. As many of you know, unfortunately, there's been a lot of distractions and not as much policy and legislative movement as we hoped. But, you know, they're starting to move things along. The agencies that have continued to staff up, a lot of them are still waiting on the secretary nomination to be approved by the Senate. As many may be aware, that some of the more contentious nominees have made their way through, and so this week, my understanding is that about 6 or 7 other Secretary Cabinet nominees will be voted on and approved in pretty quick order. That'll be good because then the other lower Senate confirmed appointees will be able to get put in place, and those agencies will be able to start implementing executive policy and procedures. So we're still kind of getting updated on where things stand with agencies. It's week 4 for the new administration, so still staffing up in a lot of places, as you're probably well aware. Congress continues to work on figuring out the best plans for repealing and replacing Obamacare. I think right now it's still up in the air. I think the repeal part is kind of the low-hanging fruit. But there's just a lot of disagreement on the best approach to replacement. Are they looking at tweaking different parts of it, the current law? Are they looking at a whole new approach to healthcare? So I think a lot of those decisions are still yet to be made. We'll have a better sense as the weeks move along. Congress continues to roll back several regulations that were passed in the last, I'd say, 7 months of the Obama administration under the Congressional Review Act. The House has passed, I believe at this point, it's been 10 regulations. Those will then be sent on to the Senate. They then pass those by a simple majority, which, for a lot of these regulations will not be an issue. And then they get sent to the White House for signature by President Trump. So far, I'm only aware of one Congressional Review Act regulation, and that has to do with a mining regulation that falls under the SEC. But it looks like more will come. The problem with holding those up are that the Senate just has very little time to deal with other things outside of the nominees, and so that's been holding up a lot of action in the Senate. We started the process of making programmatic requests for fiscal year 2018. That process is carried on through by each personal office in Congress. They request from constituents, program levels. What makes sense in the current fiscal year and I should say the future fiscal year 2018. And a look at kind of where budgets are going. I think requesting level funding makes the most sense. Programs, like CDBG, the emergency management program grants that you guys utilize annually. Those sort of things are what we make requests on and just ask for level funding because it's going to be a tight budget. My understanding is that you have had a chance to look at fiscal year 2018 Will County federal agenda. You know, the focus continues to be on the infrastructure and your important place in the region, the state, the country. You know, we look at both surface transportation and air transportation. You go through that, and then we move on to regional priorities. That includes the opioid epidemic, agricultural export, a few different, you know, the MPO rule that we were, you know, very opposed to. And then we talk about programs that are important to the county, you know, whether that's the Port Security Grant Program or the Hazardous Materials Emergency Preparedness Grant Program that you guys also receive funding for. And then we finish up the agenda with county projects. Of course, we're including some of the top priorities in infrastructure investment for the county, which includes Laramie Road Corridor improvement and then some justice-related projects that are integral to the county and its agenda moving forward.
Does
Anyone has
any questions?
I'm happy to answer.
So I think at this point, we can kind of like segue right into our.
I do have a question, Brett.
Absolutely.
You know, on our priorities, of course, one of our priorities, along with, you know, Don Moran's done a really good job on that aviation subcommittee of making sure that the remote tower project continue to go forward. I mean, is there anything where we can do, or we should be doing? I mean, I know we showed it as a priority.
We're having a resolution.
That we can maybe make some visits or whatever that we could influence, perhaps, process of bringing a tower to Lewis Airport.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, as Jim and I spoke on the last call, we want to kind of put together a plan for some staggered visits this year. You know, as many of you know on the phone call, I know Don's really aware of it, that the FAA authorization lapses September 30th of 2017. The House is just starting to hold hearings on the reauthorization. You know, I'm fairly confident that language supporting the remote tower program has been supported both the House and Senate and made it into both bills last time. But I know that, you know, when we decide on a date for a group of you folks to come out to Washington, we're going to want to meet with the right city staff and personal offices to discuss this as a priority, to let them know, you know, that this is important to you. You know, I understand that maybe you think you're not, you know, doing something immediately because we're putting the agenda, but we're not writing letters or we're not doing this right now. I still think, you know, it's a little premature because it's, you know, early to mid-February. But I do envision that we will apply pressure at the right time, you know, in March and April, when things really get going on the authorization. So I think, you know, by elevating this in your agenda book, you're doing the right thing. I think the timing is correct. So I think visit, you know, we can certainly put together a letter specifically talking about this priority, and I'm happy to put some language together and send it over to get your all approval. You know, those are the things that we would start to do in early spring, late winter.
Is there any additional push you think we can do through NACO? They already put it on.
Well, you know, I think
They've
you
done
guys
it.
are doing it. You're
Yeah.
putting it through the formal
Yeah.
process.
Okay.
I think that's the push you want. And to continue to talk to the staffer about this being a priority so that, you know, he raises it with the higher ups in NACO and their policies.
Are we set for Friday, next Friday?
Yeah, we are. We do. We're all set for that visit. But as I mentioned, it has to be a very small group.
Yes.
But where we are, and then on top of that, we're really looking forward to the group for dinner. And I imagine that, I've been in coordination with Beth, so I believe it's on all your itineraries.
I'm going.
So, yeah, we're looking forward.
Brett, I have one question for you.
Who is this speaking?
This is Ray Tuminello.
Oh, hey, Ray.
How you doing?
Good, thank you.
Wonderful. I got a question for you. Is there any discussion out there regarding the having the deductions capped for the municipal bonds? I know the tax treatment was a big deal. I heard some squabble about it a couple weeks ago. I don't know if anything else was mentioned down there.
Yeah, I mean, Ray, it's a real concern. If people don't think that it's on the table, they're wrong, because it is. If anything, it's going, if they do anything to the tax treatment of bonds, they're going to cap it. They're not going to totally eliminate the exemptions. But that's highly concerning, because most of these investors are wealthy individuals that purchase these bonds, and so if it's getting capped, they're going to have to pay a tax on a portion of the interest that they get from those bonds, and that could potentially raise the cost. Well, not potentially. If you look at how it works, the economics of it, it would raise the cost.
Right.
So yes, it's a real concern, and I have to give it to credit to the major trade associations, whether it's the American Public Transportation Association, AASHTO, the state transportation group, NACO, U.S. Conference of Mayors, everyone. They're raising it to the highest levels. I know the U.S. Conference of Mayors, before President Trump was sworn in, this was their top issue. They met with him in New York, and this was the first thing they talked about and said, this is critical to the U.S. And it's a big tax burden, not burden. It's a big tax bill to the federal government. I mean, I think it's something like 40 to 55 billion, something like that annually that, is a benefit because municipal bonds are tax exempt. So, I mean, it's a high cost, and that's why I think they're looking at it. But at the same time, it's integral to investing for local governments, governmental entities investing in the country. But the message is out there. It's being raised to everyone's level. But I think it just has to be constantly hammered. And hopefully the rank and file members are talking to the leadership at House Ways and Means and Senate Finance that are really looking at this. I know that it's being raised at the level of the administration, but it's still a real concern.
Okay. And I know it's the same thing with the online sales tax collection. That's a lot of billions of dollars that are going back to the side as well. But I do like the fact that we have a $10 million and smaller, because my biggest concern as a county going forward is I didn't want to hamper or cut the hamstrings of any small business. So I think a $10 million cap, I think that's an adequate amount that no longer signifies a small business.
Right, and I know that we had a discussion with the fiscal year 2017 agenda over this, and we wanted to make sure it was addressed and took that into account moving this forward in fiscal year 2018, kind of looking at some of the folks and their issues with this with the online sales tax legislation, and so there's support for an exemption for small businesses, and we wanted to put on record and let them know that we felt like 10 million was a good exemption level.
Perfect, thank you.
You got it.
Anyone else have any questions or concerns for Brett? All right, you got off easy today.
Oh, thank you guys. I stayed up all night studying.
You did wonderful. So wonderful that you're that effective, and we're the only had to keep you for 15 minutes, so.
Well, I do appreciate it. We're looking forward to seeing you guys soon, and hopefully you have good weather to travel out here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll talk to you 18 times before next week, so.
All right, sounds good.
All right, take care.
Take care, everyone.
Is that just turn on? Okay, we are gonna go right on to you, Mr. Hassard. Yes, Major. Okay, Brian. Got anything for us?
Well, yeah, we got a lot to do. You know, Rhonda's here, do you want to bring her up to talk about?
Well, we got her
one
on
part of
for
the agenda?
a little bit, and with our new business. I think right now what we need to go and start off with our 2017 state legislative agenda and our priorities. Has anyone had a chance to look at them? There's also been some other bills that kind of came out in the meantime, and I had talked with Speaker Mustis about this, that we're gonna not necessarily put on for our priorities, but we're gonna have aware with Margot's bill, House Bill 2613, which is the drainage district revenue. I didn't know if you were able to get a chance to go and look at that, Margot's bill.
Yeah, I looked at it. I talked to her last week about it. She brought it to my attention that she was introducing the bill, and kind of way she explained it to me, it didn't dawn on me. She was talking about the airport, footprint of the airport with the drainage district. She just talked about drainage districts in general and paying property taxes. And so I don't know. She introduced it. I'm not sure exactly it would be paid for my assumption, and Judy might be able to know better about this, through the leasehold tax on the farm than they would, who's ever farming the property, because right
But
now.
it doesn't have anything on there about that.
Well,
looked at it.
that was her intent. Again, she was in discussion with IDOT to find out, because obviously IDOT is a non-tax exempt body. They're not going to pony up to the table and pay any additional fees or things. So I would assume that whoever's ever farming the farm, just like the property tax would be assessed. And I don't know. Again, this just
Okay,
came
Ron,
out.
that's right. Maybe you should.
Ron, we'll come up here and
I'm
talk.
sorry. It sounds like the bill that she's putting through would be something that belongs in the current South Suburban, the airport bill that we have, the tax collection bill that, you know what I'm talking about, right, Jim? The one that we've had since.
But let me ask you a question on drainage districts. Currently, drainage districts, this is to replace property tax, right? This leasehold by the state, if there's leasehold, there's additional monies that are charged to the lease, and that replace the real estate taxes, and then are distributed to the various taxing levels. Right? Are drainage districts part of that?
No.
Do they
So
get real
they
estate?
aren't, right.
So they're based on fees. So this is what I think makes this a little more difficult. Drainage districts do not get real estate taxes. They get fees, and what fees were paid.
They're on a separate
before
bill.
that. I understand. I
Separate
understand
bill,
how
yeah.
it works. So what fees are drainage districts not collecting that they would have collected before?
So any property that has been purchased by the state, there's no drainage district fee collected for it. So this has been going on since
Drainage
2002.
district, so where's the fee coming into?
So the properties that are within the drainage area, they're assessed so much per acre for that, to help pay in. So you figure that's the stormwater, that's how the stormwater moves through.
I understand, but who pays the fee? And when
The
do
property
they-
owner.
When he what? He gets a bill?
Property owner, it's on your.
It's not on
No,
the
it's
original
not,
tax
it's not.
bill, it's a separate tax bill. They do a separate billing for
Okay.
drainage districts.
And so what authority do they
I don't-
even,
I
they even
don't-
have to collect the fee? Because
I don't get two bills.
Yours is an established
Yeah, I don't
drainage
get two bills,
district.
it's on my property.
The problem is that none of
But-
those, the leasehold properties,
Well, let me even ask you for you that.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that every drainage district is on property tax. I don't know what yours is, they must have voted it. So they get a property tax. I mean, they're, that somewhere, that drainage district had to vote on that, to get on the property tax.
Well, they must have, a long time ago before I was.
So I mean, what
around.
drainage
It's been
districts
going
are
on a
collecting
long
real
time.
estate tax?
see, the difference is, like you said, Jim, some drainage districts are on the bill, which would mean they would have a taxing body number, be considered a body.
So they're
If
collecting
that is
well,
the case,
let me just
they would
describe.
get a portion of that, the
Right.
dollars that we collect
Are they-
from the state.
So there are some drainage districts, Rhonda, that are collecting real estate taxes. They have a real estate tax levy.
Yes,
In those cases, yes, there should be.
like Judy's, it's on the bill, so she's,
But I'm just wondering if that's how many drainage districts in that airport footprint, you know?
I know for sure Blackwell, my Union Drainage District 1 is definitely.
So I'm just
So
curious.
there could be up to two.
So I do think, the reason I'm saying this, if there's a real estate tax levy, I think they should get it. If there's not a real estate tax levy, then they should not, because they weren't getting it under real estate tax.
which is basically how it's working. So what happens is, and some of those houses that the state purchased and tore down, I mean, we get nothing on. The only ones we get something on are the ones that are still standing and are rented. And then we get,
It has to be a revenue.
that's one bill that I send, or one letter I send to the department. Then the other one is farm leaseholds. Now, after I send them the letter that says this is the amount that you're gonna pay, the treasurer then takes all the taxing districts that have a levy that are within that, and they distribute the money. So if there was a drainage district in that, it would be a taxing body and it would get money, so that, or be distributed dollars.
So if they had a real
That, the
estate
case
tax
is they're
levy,
not, so what,
if they had this real estate tax levy, they should get the money.
because every other taxing body
They
is
don't
getting
though.
that.
They currently don't because they said, back at the time when Elverson and Dugan put this together, they only negotiated for the least dollars to go to the taxing. The drainage district is a fee. It's on our property tax bill, but it's a fee, so they refuse to pay it.
It's not a taxing
So
body,
It's not a real
it's
estate
required.
tax.
But here's the thing, whether it is or isn't, it's something that the voters voted on
Yeah.
to collect. We have no other way of maintaining our stormwater without those dollars. The majority of the land in this drainage district is bought up by the state. It's been purchased since 2002. It is currently 2017. So if they need to do any major anything, what money can they do with
So
it?
let me ask you, so then it may not be a real estate tax levy. It's a fee that goes in your real estate tax bill that at some point you agreed to pay. So the
They're assessed.
fee should still be on your real estate tax bill. It's a
But the
fee.
properties, all those properties, Jim, have been bought by IDOT. That's where the money for all the other taxing bodies, those lease dollars are supplementing the taxes
I
that
see
are no
what you're
longer
saying.
being collected. They come back to the county, Steve Weber distributes them. So my thing is that for 15 years now, the drainage district is losing money.
Can I just
The
suggest?
thing is, it's just a collection mechanism. If it's just if going on the real estate tax, well, I see what you're saying. It was still-
In the can.
it was still-
State one.
yeah, okay.
Maybe I should just go back to find out where the original.
I think it's more complicated if I'm bringing it up.
I don't know if it's more complicated or not. I get my
Is it-
tax
is
bill,
it-
there's a
no,
line
With the
item.
state, because it's a fee, it's not a real estate tax levy.
And it doesn't say in that original legislation that they have to pay a fee.
So it's looking to get that supported, so we can start collecting those fees, so that the drainage district can do something. It's not fair for that area population to be just inundated for this project that's gone on forever. forever and ever and ever, and they should be able to supplement, it gets supplemented by the state from the fees that should have been paid all along. They should be able to get that so they can do drainage.
They should add it to
district
the
work.
leasehold.
They should add it to the leasehold, right?
Whoever's leasing the property pays the fee.
Huh?
Leaseholder.
That's why it could be.
The
Some of the
lease-
properties aren't leased.
Pardon?
Some of the properties aren't
Okay,
leased.
so the homestead.
They pay nothing, yeah.
Well, then they don't collect,
Homesteads.
they only give them money on what they collect. If they're not collecting money, they don't get it.
Right.
If the state's just letting it sit there and they're not leasing it, or there's no revenue involved, then they don't pay.
Well, maybe I should, let me go back to Margot and kind of find the rationale behind the bill, why she introduced it, who asked her to introduce it, and get a little history and see what she's trying to accomplish before we debate the issue. 'Cause the
Well, I
bill-
think they just want to present it the correct way. I mean,
Right.
Right.
it's not a real estate tax levy, so then maybe the legislation would say leaseholds, other leases, they will pay the fee
Right.
that was established.
Let me just get a little bit more history on it. It's not going to go anywhere. I'll bring it back, some information on it.
That would be wonderful.
Suzanne. So the
Okay.
lease, the lease.
I know, but he's gonna get information. We'll then fix.
But I just want to say one thing. The leaseholder doesn't pay the property tax. The lease dollars are collected by the state,
Right.
and then they're redistributed. So the leaseholder is paying the property taxes per se,
Well, they're paying it through the lease.
paying it through the lease.
Right, but they don't
Kept it
distribute
all
it to
in
them.
it.
Brett, did you have a bill number for this?
Yes, that's House Bill 2613.
2613?
Yes.
So, it's not on our agenda yet.
No, I just wanted to put this
Well-
out for,
I think there's things that are priorities, and I think there's things we just track the legislation.
right.
Well, we started, I guess, got distracted here because we started off working on the state legislative agenda.
And then she-
Well, there was a couple things that I wanted to just put out there to see if this is something we do, I mean, right.
So we should always understand this, you know, and not everything's a priority, but we track everything.
We track, right. What is one of our major priorities right now is this water testing for the quarry, and there's 2 bills out,
Yeah, we had some recent development,
Section 3.
3 now.
Last week, you know, we had Emily McCasey introduce a bill. We've been discussing this topic for a long time. There's some conversations going on. Emily had called me last week and said she had gotten some information regarding, somebody was inquiring about the bill and getting some background on it, and she had told me that it was kind of coming from the administration. The person who was inquiring said that he had talked to the administration. So I went to the governor's office, and they in return were all of a sudden very pro our bill. Introduction, they said they were going to introduce legislation that week, and they said they're probably going to use Representative McDermott for the sponsor. So I went and talked to Representative McDermott. She was unaware of it at the time, and by the time I left her office, and she called me back and said, guess what, I'm the sponsor of House Bill 3056. So the governor's office introduced it through her, and we have our bill, which is a little bit more detailed, and Dean just said there's a 3rd bill.
Yeah, there's a bill that Hastings introduced, which is Senate Bill 1355, which has nothing to do with our stuff, but it has to do with CCTV sites and allowing them to close and use the site for various purposes. It's not very detailed, so it could leave it wide open. And I didn't see anything in there about making sure that the groundwater's safe before you close it up and decide you're on, turn it over to somebody else. So we need to watch that bill.
I don't quite understand.
I don't.
So what's his bill to?
I don't know, I haven't looked at it.
Close all the
Sounds
I
sites?
was told by the AG's office late last week that this bill was going to be introduced, and I mean, the synopsis, it says provides that until effective date of closure, date of rules adopted by the agency's proposal, the agency may grant permit modifications for closure of a subdivided area within a CCTV site upon application. So I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means, but I'm just thinking, if they're gonna be closing, they ought to be closing and making sure they're not impacting the area. So I think we need to make sure that they don't just get to close without proving that they're not doing anything to harm the environment. So I just wanted to make sure we brought up that. But the other two bills, Emily's does have the hillside filling in addition to the groundwater, which is a big loophole. The other thing that I asked for in the legislative priorities, and I brought up a few times, is the stormwater monitoring, because a lot of these sites have not gotten their inward gradient, so the water stays in, it doesn't go out for a while. When it gets above that, of course, groundwater monitoring, we absolutely have to have that. But in the meantime, we need to find out what's going on in the site, and the only way we probably be able to know for sure is to do the stormwater monitoring much more detailed, much more relevant to a CCDD site. So maybe a VTEX or a T-Cliff, those parameters, not the 5 parameters that you see at almost any construction site. So we need to make sure that's added, because we won't know until 10 years from now, and then all of a sudden, when they start monitoring the groundwater, it's too late.
Well, I mean, I think it's good news that the governor's office is
Yes.
now
Oh, this is great.
not
absolutely.
interested in this. So, and I'm glad that we just never let loose this. But I do also have another question. Mary, do we know, welcome back, by the way.
Thank you.
You're all refreshed, ready to go?
I am.
Okay. The Attorney General's lawsuit, how's that going?
It's both State's Attorney and Attorney General. We
Okay.
both,
You both
we
have
filed in the 3rd District, they filed in the 1st.
Okay.
The lawsuits were combined in the 3rd District, which
Okay.
we were happy about. Briefs have been filed. I think that we just filed our brief, I think 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. The Attorney General asked for more time to file theirs, so that's where we're at. And once they get their final brief, it's their reply brief. So we filed our initial brief, the sites or the opposition filed their answer, the Illinois Pollution Control Board, and then we filed our reply brief. So as soon as that final reply brief is filed, and then perhaps oral arguments, then we'll see what happens.
Our lawsuit is for them to require more monitoring.
It is. We appealed, we're in the appellate court, and we're hoping that the court will say, it is a very high standard that we have to overcome. But we're hopeful that they will say the Illinois Pollution Control Board has to go back and provide for groundwater monitoring. But in the meantime, legislation would be a great thing.
Yes, I agree.
There's no guarantees on that.
So we have a big, as you remember, the history of this whole thing is the former administration did not appoint an existing member of the Pollution Control Board. They had 2 members that were conflicted on the underlying issue, so we could never get any decisions made until they finally, Governor Rauner was appointed, and then they had appointed somebody, then they just closed the docket. We went through the JCAR process to get an open docket again for this rulemaking. We've been dealing with this for a long time, and to have the governor come on board obviously is a big important part of it. It's still going to be a fight, but it's a big step forward. So it's a very positive step.
Yeah, this is, it's excellent. Okay, does anyone have any questions about our state legislative priorities agenda that we need to actually get a motion and a second so we can get that?
To approve the state legislative agenda?
Yes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. That's kind of weird. We'll talk about it. You have a question?
I do have a question for Mr. Hesse. Now, all the types of things get filed, including a lot of shell bills. And sometimes are pretty difficult to keep an eye on. And I'm sure, I shouldn't say I'm sure, I know some of those shell bills about issues with counties. Now, how are you able to track those? I mean, did I see some other proposed legislation and with the rules maybe that allowed them to move even quicker on getting some legislation passed? So I'm just wondering how we really.
Well, you know, there's 5,000 to 6,000 bills introduced per year. Just remember, only about 300 of those become law. The shell bills are always introduced by each caucus and actually from individual members for the potential if they're in the process of negotiating something. Very seldom do you see any action taken on shell bills unless it's directed from the leadership or there's some issue. But we've been very fortunate. We've used shell bills before too. I actually put in shell bills for the county and for things for us to discuss, and if we have a vehicle to get it to the position so we can move the legislation. No, we always look for it because you have to watch the amendments toward the end of the sessions that will go on to a shell bill, an empty bill basically. So that's where the timing and the amendments start flying. You know, we track them all. We're pretty sure, but we pretty much got a good ear to the ground to know if there's something that's going to rise to the top. We'll figure it out. That doesn't necessarily mean like if we get to the next when Rhonda talks about the pollution control devices. In the Senate's been doing this quote-unquote budget, and they introduced 12 bills. One of the bills was Senate Bill 9, and it was a 500-page bill, and in that bill they stuck our language back in there for the pollution control devices on the refineries. We caught that, obviously went to all 4 caucuses, explained to them. When they're drafting these large type bills where they're throwing in different types of taxes, changes, whatnot to the tax code, everybody comes to the table and people start inserting things. Obviously this was inserted, really probably nobody else understands this type of legislation other than us who's been following it and some other people. This is a priority of the Illinois Manufacturers Association, the petroleum refiners. So they probably went to the staff and said, listen, we're trying to codify some legislation. We need to have this language in here. You know, can you put it in? So it was in this Senate Bill 9, Amendment number 2. We caught it. We went to the caucuses and explained, you know, what devastation this will cause our county, our school districts, other taxing bodies. We're hoping that's going to be removed because this Senate Bill 9 is not going to go anywhere. That's the huge tax increase for a while at least. So we're hoping that there's going to probably be more drafts happening over the next week or so that we get it removed. If not, we'll have to. We've been very fortunate to get it killed in the House all the time. So this is a long way of doing done, but that's what you got to watch for is when they sneak something like this in to a larger bill that nobody's maybe not hoping that they're paying attention to. Right. So it does happen. I'm not suggesting it doesn't. It's probably happened more times than not because, you know, things get snuck in, or even the language that's snuck in sometimes has undue consequences when you start enforcing it. So this has been our fight for the last 5 or 6 years. We've always prevailed, but we know that they're still out there trying to get this done. So they'll continue to get it done, especially with oil prices being as low as they are. They're always looking for ways to bump to the bottom line. So we got 2 refineries, and you know, we have to be cautious of this one. And they are very persistent, very persistent.
As we sit there and we weigh out the success of what we have with our consultants, with Curry and Associates, with both, you know, Julie and Brett, we also have to remember it's not just the bills that we get through, but it's the bills they're blocking down there. And this right here is one that is gigantic. And when Rhonda gets up here and explains a little bit more in great detail, you will understand the magnitude of this issue. So,
I'm sorry.
how many refineries are in Illinois? 4.
We have 2 of them.
We have 2 of them.
Luckies. Okay. Great. Yeah, there's a few other things, but we had discussed it, and we're already kind of getting close onto our time. Does anyone have any more questions? Okay. We're also going to go right into our federal agenda that we need to get a motion.
Second.
All in favor? question. Nick, did you have?
And if there's questions, I think Brett kind of skimmed a lot of the high-level stuff.
Right.
So.
And thank you, I know you've been working back and forth with.
We tried to polish it up, make it more readable, and hopefully if there's any typos in the draft, it will be caught, but if you see something, let us know.
And not,
It's not in
wait
final
till
form
Thursday.
yet, this is the substance, but
I'll make it twice. Does anyone have a question? Mike, I know you wanted.
Yeah, I wanted to mention, again, we talked about this in the meeting, we have in there at 1.3 million is our cost for the study.
that is a combination of the CDM Smith, Julie Curry, I'm sorry, not Julie Curry, Ann Schneider and her team, and the money from JADA. So that all that together totals approximately 1.3 million, which is the cost. I mean, that's the whole study is all going into the same effort. So if we want to lower it back down to just the CDM portion, but that's not reflective of all the costs related to the study. That 1.3 is everything, soup to nuts. So.
All right. A lot of phone calls and a lot of work on with Nick on that. Thank you. I do not see Mr. Glasgow here. We met last week and we were talking about some various bills that he was kind of working on. And he wanted to come and discuss them, but he might have overlooked his schedule and missed us. So we'll go ahead and remove that.
Suzanne,
Yes,
and
dear.
Greg called me on the way here and he said, I think you should discuss that last night, Dr.
Oh,
So he
okay.
said, sorry.
Oh,
So
okay.
you can push it over to next week, or,
Yeah.
I mean, next week.
It's next month. All right, good. While you're sitting there, we're going to kind of move right on to Senate Bill 3. I got a call from Kelly Murray where the association, the county associations, were wanting us to weigh in on this and where we felt that we were at. But looking at it, it kind of sailed through. But can you explain
Bring me the, which one's Senate Bill?
Consolidation.
The consolidation. Well, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that's an easy vote for everybody to take. It sounds really good on the pretenses, and it was pushed out of DuPage County a couple of years ago as their initiative on a trial basis, and it was expanded statewide. That's always been the priority of the governor's office. You know, it's the common denominators that we have more local government entities in the state of Illinois than any other state in the country. So this has always been on the forefront, so it doesn't surprise me that this is given the, whether it happens or not is the proof's in the pudding. And I think that's what you're going to see if you see some consolidation. You know, you have a lot of these mosquito abatement districts and stuff like that throughout the county and different things or different taxing bodies. There is probably some room for consolidation. You know, you talk about township government, there's always been a move to eliminate township government in urbanized areas. So, I mean, I don't know how far this will ever progress, but I don't know if that answers your question, what you're trying to figure out why it moved so fast.
Well, I think the association just kind of decided to just go neutral on that. They were.
Yeah, I don't think it's an issue that, you know, that big of a deal.
Jim, did you have?
I have something to say. You know, first off, you know, bills like this are just phony, not really, in my opinion, not really get to the core. They want to talk about townships, where you're not going to eliminate any cost. Because when they're expanded, the county has to pick, and the counties have to pick up the cost of what townships are doing. So you're aware of that. You know, if the road districts go away, those are county, now become county roads. And so there's no elimination of cost, maybe elimination of a form of government. But the reason I say this is just not, in my opinion, serious or genuine. They don't talk about consolidating school districts. They don't talk about consolidating park districts. And they don't talk about consolidating fire protection districts, which brings some of the largest costs on it. So, you know, when they introduce bills like this, they're just not genuine. They're you know, I don't know, they're political maybe, you know, it sounds good, like Brett said, sounds good, but in a substantive way, it's meaningless. And we should be aware of it because some of what they're suggesting is going to put a lot of cost on counties, especially in relation to townships.
And that's what they're watching for.
So, you know.
And I sincerely doubt if you're ever gonna get rid of township.
I agree.
It's,
I agree.
It's an argument that's been going on for 20 years down in Springfield. Consolidation of schools is the other one that you mentioned. Try to consolidate a small school district into a larger one, and you find that the cost of bringing the teachers up from the smaller school district to the larger one is absurd. It's happening in Lockport. It's one of the prime examples. They have, I don't know how many, 9 feeder schools into the high school system. They've tried to consolidate in Lockport for many years. And as soon as you talk about consolidation in Lockport, I've heard this, people go nuts because they want their neighborhood school. They don't want to be, so it's a very difficult situation to get done. And I mean, it's pretty much a political vote down in Springfield. It's an easy vote. You can put it on your campaign brochures. But if you're asking why it got passed without any opposition, that's why. It's not going to probably change anything.
Well, even consolidation for schools, you consolidate school districts, and you're right, now all of a sudden the elementary teachers get the same pay as the high school teachers. But there's other ways of consolidating. I look in my area, I got 3 library districts. I have 3 park districts, 3 fire protection districts, all in one township, all doing the same duplication. So, anyways. And for them to single out certain people, they should say everybody in these bills.
I was just going to bring up the Franklin Council is unique in that way because they have so many different taxing bodies, so many different districts all within the township. The bill will be very different.
All it has to do with the softball teams. You had their own softball team, Frankfurt had theirs.
Well, I don't know about that.
And they could not work together.
Maybe I'll just do it alone.
Now we can go. Rhonda, you ready to?
I'm ready.
Now, everyone's got to really pay attention. This is a tricky little subject here.
Does everybody have the flyer? Okay, I'm going to try to keep it simple. So in the upper left corner, picture of a refinery, very simply. Right below that, picture of a unit in a refinery and the processes that happen within that unit. So up in the right-hand corner, a pollution control device, as we consider it a pollution control device. A device that is attached or pertinent to the unit, site-specific, for the purpose of eliminating any air or water pollution. So things like the flame, when the flame goes off, and this is tough because I'm still learning this, so I'm sure somebody like Don probably understands this better than me being in the trades, but when the flame goes off, it means there's a problem in the unit, obviously. That flame, what happens there is a pollution control device. A scrubber, what happens with a scrubber is it keeps the particles from going into the air, polluting the air. So those things are clearly pollution control devices that are pertinent to the unit. The things that we're concerned about are the expansion of the bill, or the expansion of the language, because it appears that what they're trying to do is enlarge the definition and create an opening for certifying pollution control equipment on something like, let's talk about cleaner gas, low sulfur diesel gas. So we know that the refineries make that and that that's a byproduct, they sell that. But they make cleaner gas so they can put it in the car and drive from our refinery here to California if you want, and the gas is cleaner and it's better for, non-pollution of the air. Well, we want to make sure that the expansion of the definition doesn't come to the fact that now, because you're making cleaner gas and you have this equipment attached to your unit, that now those are pollution control devices. So that chips away at the value of the refinery. And it's not only refineries. The only thing that is not included in pollution control are wind devices, cooling ponds, and ethanol production facilities. So this doesn't only affect our 2 refineries, it it would affect our nuclear plant, which would be Braidwood, and it would also affect any coal plants that we have because they have the devices as well, and any of the new gas turbine or the combined cycle gas turbine, which we know that eventually, I mean, Grundy's getting one of those. We will probably see one of those in a few years here, I would imagine.
Dollar amounts that it would.
Well, if you go down a little further on the printout, I've added or included what we're getting, what is coming in taxes. This is $77 million. The facilities that we have that could potentially have an expansion of pollution control. Now, the one thing that I want to note is that ethanol facilities are exempted from this because they are, they make ethanol and that has to be clean. So it's exempted from this. Yet they don't want to exempt something like low sulfur diesel gas, which is basically the same concept. You're making something that's cleaner for, you know, the air and the water. So we obviously don't want the expansion of the definition of a device. We don't want them to change how a device is to be valued either. We don't want them valued at salvage value. We want them valued at 33 1/3 of market, just like everything else is. And the other thing that we're obviously concerned about are the fact that we've tried to work with them on language and they want nothing to do with that. We've proposed language to them to say that if the equipment is part of the process for a cleaner gas, you know, and it's a saleable byproduct, do not include those, exempt those out. Just go ahead and put them in the definition. And they don't want to do that. So clearly there's a reason for this. They want to add additional pollution control equipment. Now I'm told that the Faircom group that handles nuclear power plants or that gets involved in that they've talked to the Manufacturers Association and they're willing to take nuclear power out of it. Well, that's only one of our facilities. So, I mean, it's got to be consistent for everything. Did I miss anything?
No, I think the problem what we have, we've met with these people nonstop to try to identify what they classify pollution control device on a locality. In other words, we want to make sure this pollution control device is affecting the local geographic area that it's in. The one sentence that they put in here that they added is, in compliance with federal or state requirements enacted or promulgated to eliminate, prevent, or reduce air pollution or water pollution. That one sentence actually, in our interpretation, means that it would, the process, if they develop a cleaner gas or diesel fuel or something, would be included as a pollution control device. So the whole process would then end up turning into being scrap value, which would take the percentage of our, what we generate in taxes down to basically nothing. So if they expand their facilities, they have to be ordered by the state or federal government to do a cleaner gas. They're going to suggest that the whole processing. Now they insist that it's not, but I mean, if they went to court, they probably would find and we've had a pretty good relationship with our refineries. We've had 5-year agreements.
We're starting next week on ExxonMobil. So.
Yeah. So, but they're also facing, like I said, a lower gas price. These guys are looking for ways to decrease costs at their facilities because we do have lower gas prices.
So if this bill passed, let's just, it's not going to because you guys are fabulous, you're not going to allow this. But if it did, what is the exact bottom line for it? I mean, I know the answer, but.
The real problem with the bill is that all of our special use properties we have agreements on. So we sit down and we negotiate a multi-year agreement. In our agreements, it is very clear that we don't value pollution control. So since we've negotiated agreements here in Will County, we don't touch those pollution control devices. In fact, most of our facilities, ExxonMobil, PDV, Braidwood, you know, now NRG, they don't even file for pollution control devices because we don't value them. Typically what happens is they file for them through the EPA, they go to the Department of Revenue, we get a certificate saying, did you value this scrubber? If you did, take the value off, because then they pay a pollution control tax. Well, we don't value those. So for us, this could be really bad because, one, it could eliminate our ability to negotiate agreements, and that's bad. We're the only county who has agreements on all of our big properties, which is a big deal. I mean, it keeps things stable and everybody knows where we're going. It could eliminate our ability to do that, and if they are able to file for pollution control devices, and this, they say they're codifying something, but they're really expanding it, then we end up in basically giving them another avenue to appeal or to discuss what valuation is. So now we don't only have the local assessor or myself, the board of review, the PTAB, now we have given them the ability, if they file on these, to go through court and get an actual opinion on value. That's a nightmare for us.
So I have a question for you. Let me ask you, so right now, currently, and this is very complex, so I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. Right now, currently, you do not value the pollution control devices that are on there now, correct?
That's correct.
Because they're getting taxed outside. This bill,
They're not getting taxed out.
they're not getting.
Because they've not applied or tried to get certified for any of them.
The process, what this all started down south, in one of the refineries when they did a major expansion. And the state of Illinois, through the EPA and Pollution Control Board, I think made a mistake by giving them exemptions on the process. So once they figured this out, that they want to codify this in state law, so if you have a scrubber on your facility over here at Citgo Refinery, that's basically a pollution control device, they could, if they went through a normal process. In Will County, we don't do it that way. They go through the EPA and say, hey, we're cleaning the air, this should be determined scrap value. So they would certify that, the Department of Revenue would come back in and you would assess it as scrap value. Being that we have negotiated processes here in Will County, we automatically say, hey, you're telling us that scrubber is a pollution control device, we're taking your word, it's not valued, okay? So that's part of the negotiations here in Will County. So that's not the way it works in the state. The problem with this legislation, underacting legislation, it really does bring into the process. The process could be, because you're making a cleaner product, you basically could tell the whole process is a pollution control device. And we could see the whole process, see what I'm saying?
The whole thing
process downstream. Well, because we're providing cleaner gas for Nebraska.
That's where I was trying to get grasp at. That's
right.
We completely lose
We
the
lose the
ability
ability to do the assessment on the value of the plant.
Correct.
Because the process is now cleaning something better for the environment throughout a larger geographic area. So they have to do it. So just one sentence is room for interpretation, which will probably eventually be done by the courts. But it does give us a lot of anxiety.
There's one guy,
And the reason that, to piggyback off what Brent just said, this all comes from Wood River. At the Wood River facility, the school district had the attorney, Stuart Witt, who we dealt with several times. They could not come to an agreement, and because you have to submit, when you file for pollution control equipment or devices, you have to submit your financials. What happened was the law firm was able to FOIA the financials on Wood River through the EPA and the Department of Revenue through pollution control. So that got a rise out of everybody, and they said, we're gonna stop that. We're not gonna ask for the financials. We're gonna value these things at salvage value instead of 33 1/3 of their costs or their sales or anything else. So we won't even have their financials on hand for somebody to FOIA to try to come up with a value. So it all started at Wood River, and we have continued to say, keep it at Wood River. Because we have the two biggest refineries.
And our refineries have been fine up to now, but believe me, if a piece of legislation that came through, they would take advantage of it.
Absolutely.
So,
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I like your
Yeah, any questions?
Yeah, it's in Senate Bill number 9,
It's one
amendment
of the,
number 2. It's
omnibus.
one of the big, part of the Senate negotiated budget bills. This is where all the taxes are included. I mean, it's a huge tax bill.
Right,
And they
found a
stuck it in
sentence in
there.
there that said refinery.
So, yeah, they just hid it in there, and, you know, I went through each caucus, and went to each appropriation person in each caucus, and nobody understands this, so I can understand somebody to be able to sneak this in and say, hey, this is just codifying some existing practice, we need this language. And somebody, I don't think did this on, it could have been done on purpose, who knows? But somebody's clearing a favor with somebody.
So are they getting, after you explain it to the caucus, are they getting it, or?
Well, Leader Radonia or Leader Jordan represent your area, which the 2 school districts would be hugely impacted. So they definitely would, they understand it.
Okay.
So they know enough, I mean.
No, they understand.
77 million, I think they understand that, right?
Yeah, well, they understand the impact. The one school district, I forget, is it 92?
Yeah.
It's 92?
Oh, yeah,
School
that's
board
your,
member.
oh, yeah.
I think it's 50% of your budget.
Elizabeth, do you talk, is this something like a big subject, you guys going, trying to educate the public?
So the one school that's 50% of their budget is the refinery. Lockport High School District has, obviously not quite that large, but it's a big proportion of their budget. The county, I think we talked about this once before, 4 million.
5 million.
4 or 5 million.
I thought it was 5 million.
That
For
impacts the
some
county.
reason that number.
Just the county itself.
stayed. Right.
So it's big numbers in the county. Big, big.
Of course, one of my concerns is that there's only 4 refineries in Illinois. Therefore, most legislators may not necessarily take this up as a priority for them or be that interested. Certainly, I think, though, that we all should be reaching out to the Will County legislators, not just Will County, the school districts, any taxing body that's affected by this should be contacting our legislators.
Our legislators.
So I want to know where our legislators are. Are they on top of it? Are they educating their colleagues who maybe don't understand refineries or aren't affected by a refinery?
Being that we have 2 leaders that are affected by this helps. And secondly, we've been very fortunate because we've been dealing this with, what, 6, 7 years now, trying to stop this. This is an ongoing perennial issue, but we've been very fortunate that we were able to make sure this doesn't move forward, and people do understand it. Even though it's only isolated to 2 counties, they understand the impact on the members, and we have a good
Well, it's more than
bipartisan
2
group
counties,
there.
though, isn't it?
It's 3 counties.
3 counties.
3 counties. We have a
Destroy
good
that small
bipartisan, our members in the General Assembly are very good about going to their leadership and saying, this would devastate our area, you cannot do this to us. So we've been very fortunate.
And Chris,
It actually is more than 3 counties, because
It's more
it's
than-
3 counties for refineries,
But
but
then you have the
then you
new-
have
Yeah,
the
that's
nukes,
right.
and you have the
and
coal
Chris,
plants.
explain the organization. I mean, it's so much where they are completely organized, where you meet 4 times a year.
Yeah, they meet quarterly.
What is the name of that?
Called Faircom.
Right.
The executive director used to be the superintendent at Morris High School. I actually have a real nice guy, lives over in Eureka, and he's been part of the organization forever. And it's literally all the taxing bodies around all the nuclear power plants, from the small to large ones. So they meet down in Coal City. They just been here last month, so they probably won't meet now again until June when session's over normally.
Who introduces this stuff?
That's what I was asking. It's some down south, some downstate. Right, because, Brent, who introduced this last time? It
Pardon?
was someone from downstate, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, it was introduced, it started with Senator Haynes from the area that, in Wood River, but it was carried by Jacobs, who was no longer there, but he carried the bill, got it out of the Senate, we stopped it in the House, and we've been stopping it in the House.
What does he benefit from? I mean, I still am not getting
There's a
that.
big fight, I can't
It's just a
explain the
fight.
dynamics in Wood River. The state's attorney actually is against the school districts down in Wood River and actually set a, and I.
And he was a former state's attorney.
And he was, they actually ruled against the schools. And it's a very, very, I mean, were you at that meeting? We were down in a meeting with all the taxing bodies from Wood River. And I've never seen the nastiness between a legislator and his taxing bodies ever before. They got in a fight. I mean. So.
In the
See how
meeting.
lucky we are.
Yeah.
So that's all that this is, because I'm still not seeing where a legislator would even have a benefit for their community.
Legislators around the state that are affected by this, they're being lobbied hard by this manufacturers association.
And I had labor, actually labor came up about 3 years ago, was getting the notification that, you know, they were going to lay off everybody at Citgo if there wasn't going to have this bill passed.
Oh,
So, I mean,
goodness.
yeah, steelworkers, the pipe fitters and whatnot were going bonkers. And I thought Wade Beasley calmed them down, and he realized that wasn't true. So, yeah, there's a lot of angles that things been approached that, believe me.
Well, we negotiated Citgo while this was going on, and they were very clear with us that they did not have anything to do with it. In fact, at one point in our negotiations, they came out and told the schools around the table that they would not get involved in it or support it. So Citgo has,
Okay,
or
that's good to
PDD,
They've not
has
come out
not
against it.
been,
Well, if it passes, I wouldn't suggest that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be, they wouldn't be that big of a hero.
and we're gonna know very soon what ExxonMobil's thinking, because we're starting our negotiations with them,
Plus, have
I
a new
think March
plant manager,
6th.
too.
They have a new plant manager, another lady.
Yeah.
Did,
Get those school districts on that.
I'm sure they will be.
Okay, we left the roughest bill for last. It's going to put you all in a mood.
Can I just clarify one thing, because I don't want anybody to leave thinking, I want to backtrack on that drainage district issue, that Margot's bill.
Right.
That is actually, I looked it up just to be sure where that was where she was
Okay.
putting that, and it is in the state property, the airport bill. She's adding that in the bill, saying that from 2017 forward, that she wants the drainage fee to be able to be collected. So that is going in that airport, what we call the airport bill. But I want to be clear on, the original airport bill, as it was done, said that the supervisor of assessments was to certify to the state the 2002 leasehold taxes on any property that the state was leasing, whether it be a residence or on the farm properties. So what we do is, if they're renting the property, we get a list of those, and I certify the 2002 taxes. The 2002 taxes on those properties were not leasehold taxes. So the word leasehold doesn't even really belong there, and we've, for this many years, just certified the taxes, what they were in 2002. The farmland leases, we value those based on farmland, just like we value any other farmland, based on productivity. So I just wanted to clarify, that's how we do things, and that's how, from 2002 forward, we have interpreted the bill, which ends in 2020. So she's making an amendment to that bill, and I think eventually a decision or a discussion would have to be made as to, do we want to discuss any other amendments that need to be made in that bill, because it is 2017. 2002 was 15 years ago, and there are properties that didn't even have taxes in 2002. So if she's going to go forward and amend something, I think we should just be cognizant of the fact that that bill is not 15 years later perfectly written. It's not easy to try to, you know, I just go with it and send them a letter and certify it and hope that they send what I tell them needs to be sent based on taxes. So it might be a discussion that you might want to have later in a small meeting or something else, but I just wanted to clarify.
Thank you.
Okay.
We're really trying to pick those words quickly.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Anything? No, no reason for executive. Public comment. Is there any public comment? Okay. If I can have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
All in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned.